All right. Ready to dive deep.
Always.
Today, we're tackling Deuteronomy 32,
Oh, yeah.
the Song of Moses.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know some folks hear Old Testament and they think, long speeches, fire and brimstone.
Yeah, yeah.
But trust me, this one is less about burning bushes and more about, like, these burning questions
Mm-hmm.
that are still relevant today,
It really is.
thousands of years later.
It is. It's not just a historical record. You got to imagine Moses, knowing his time is short,
Right.
giving this powerful final message to the Israelites before they enter the Promised Land. It's like
Yeah.
a pep talk, a history lesson, and a warning, all
Yeah.
kind of rolled into one.
Okay, so unpack this song for us. What's the core message here?
Well, it starts by establishing who God is,
Okay.
his unshakable foundation. He's often referred to as the rock.
The rock, yeah.
And it's not just a random nickname, right?
Right.
Remember, these folks had been wandering in the desert for decades.
Yeah, yeah.
Rocks provided shelter, stability
Makes sense.
in this harsh environment. So calling God the rock emphasizes his steadfastness, his unwavering presence amidst the chaos.
Like their whole world was shifting sand.
Yeah.
And God was this solid ground
Makes sense.
they could always depend on.
And Moses reminds them, too, of all the ways God has been that rock for them, right?
Yeah.
Guiding them, protecting them, providing for their needs. He even uses that beautiful imagery
I love that part.
of an eagle teaching its young to fly,
Oh, yeah.
symbolizing God's tender care and guidance.
Yeah, that's from Deuteronomy 32.11. It's just this powerful image that really sticks with you. But then here's where things be interesting.
Yeah.
And kind of heartbreaking, right?
Yeah.
The Israelites, despite experiencing all this goodness, they kept rebelling, turning away from the very God who'd been so faithful.
Yeah, and Moses doesn't shy away from calling them out on that either.
No, he does not.
He describes how they corrupted themselves, they forsook God. Basically, they started taking it all for granted. The blessings became commonplace instead of a source of gratitude.
It makes me wonder, have you ever experienced something similar
Oh, for sure.
in your own life where, I don't know, maybe success or
Mhm.
even just good fortune led to this sense of complacency rather than a deeper appreciation?
Absolutely.
I think we've all been there.
It's a slippery slope
Yeah.
because this complacency opens the door to something even more dangerous.
Oh, okay.
Idolatry.
Idolatry. Okay, so not golden calves anymore. But what does idolatry even look like in our modern world?
It's anything that takes the place of God in our lives.
Okay.
It's the things that consume our thoughts, our desires, our time, our energy, to the point where they become our primary source of security or identity or worth.
And so we're not talking about like physically bowing down to statues,
Yeah.
but maybe bowing down to our careers, our possessions,
Yeah.
our social media feeds, all that.
All that. And Deuteronomy 32 is a powerful reminder that these modern idols, right, however subtle they might seem, they can be just as destructive as the golden calves of old.
Wow.
They pull us away from the true source of life and fulfillment.
And the consequences of that drift are pretty serious.
Yeah.
Moses doesn't sugarcoat it.
No, he does not.
Yeah. So we've got this tension, right,
Mm-hmm.
between judgment and hope. It's like even when God is laying down the law, there's this underlying message of, hey, I still love you. I still want what's best for you.
Yeah, I think that tension really highlights just the complexity of the relationship between God and humanity, right?
Yeah.
God's love is unwavering, but our choices have consequences.
Like that classic parenting dilemma.
Oh,
you know,
for sure.
you love your kids unconditionally,
Yeah,
but you also have to set boundaries
right.
and let them experience the natural consequences of their actions.
It's a great analogy, and Deuteronomy 32 is full of these, these powerful metaphors and images that help us grasp these profound truths.
We talked about the rock. We talked about the eagle imagery. Is there another example that stands out to you?
Well, there's that striking image of God repenting for his servants in Deuteronomy 32.36.
Yeah.
It's a phrase that can be easily misunderstood.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because we often think of repentance as admitting wrongdoing, but obviously God doesn't sin. So what's going on there?
It's more about God's deep compassion and his willingness to relent from judgment when his people turn back to him. It's like this beautiful picture of divine empathy where God's heart is moved by the plight of his people.
So it's not that God changes his mind about who he is or what he desires, but rather his actions are influenced
Yeah.
by our response to him.
Exactly. And this brings us to one of the most crucial themes in Deuteronomy 32. The importance of remembering.
Right.
Moses keeps emphasizing the need to remember God's faithfulness, his deliverance, his provision.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, don't forget where you came from. Don't forget who brought you out of slavery, who sustained you in the wilderness. Because when we forget, that's when we start to drift.
And that drift often leads to, back to idolatry.
Yeah.
We lose sight of the true source of our security, our identity, and we start looking for fulfillment in all the wrong places.
So remembering isn't just about nostalgia, right?
Ugh.
It's about staying grounded in truth, in reality. It's about keeping our hearts aligned with God's heart.
Precisely. And this idea of remembering, it has practical implications for us today. I mean,
Literally.
in a world that's constantly bombarding us with messages and distractions, it's so easy to lose focus, to forget what truly matters.
So how do we cultivate this muscle of remembering then? How do we stay tethered to God's truth amidst the chaos of modern life?
Well, I think it starts with cultivating a posture of gratitude.
Okay.
Taking time each day to acknowledge God's blessings, big and small, recognizing his hand at work in our lives. It's like actively choosing to focus on what we have rather than what we lack. Shifting our perspective from a place of scarcity to a place of abundance.
Exactly. And beyond gratitude, it's about intentionally creating space for God in our lives, whether it's through prayer, meditation, spending time in nature, or simply being still and listening. These practices help us stay connected to the source of our strength and wisdom.
It's like carving out those sacred moments in our busy schedules, those oases of peace where we can reconnect with God and remember who we are in him.
And as we do that, right, as we cultivate those habits of remembering, we begin to see the world differently. Our priorities shift, our desires change, and we become more resilient to the temptations of idolatry that surround us.
Yeah, we start to recognize those strange gods for what they are. Fleeting distractions that ultimately leave us empty and unfulfilled.
And instead, we find our true identity and purpose in the one who calls us his own, the one who never forgets us, the one who is always there, waiting to restore us to wholeness. That's a powerful image to end on. We've covered a lot of ground today. And I think it's time for us to pause here and let these ideas sink in a bit. When we come back, we'll explore how this ancient message of hope and restoration can empower us to live lives of purpose and faithfulness in our modern world. So we've been unpacking, some pretty heavy stuff here, right?
Yeah.
Rebellion, judgment, idolatry. But running through it all, there's this thread of hope, this promise of restoration. It's almost like a love letter woven into a warning.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And that's really the heart of Deuteronomy 32, the message that Moses, in his final moments, wanted to leave with the Israelites.
So let's zoom in on that message of restoration then. What does it actually look like, and how can we experience it in our own lives?
I think it starts with recognizing our need for it. We can't white knuckle our way back to wholeness.
Right.
We need to acknowledge that we've drifted, that we've allowed those strange gods to take root in our hearts.
It's like admitting we've gotten lost, that we need help finding our way back to the path.
Exactly. And the good news is God is always there, ready to guide us back. He's not waiting to punish us. He's waiting to embrace us.
But how do we make that turn, though? How do we shift from running away to running towards him?
It's about surrender.
Okay.
Laying down our pride, our self-sufficiency, and saying, okay, I need you. I can't do this on my own.
It's like finally letting go of the oars and letting God steer the boat.
That's a good one. And that surrender opens the door to transformation.
Okay.
As we allow God's love to wash over us, to heal those broken places, we start to see ourselves and the world differently.
Our priorities shift, our desires change, and we become more aligned with his purpose for our lives.
Precisely. And that's the beauty of restoration, It's not just about going back to how things were. It's about becoming who we were always meant to be.
So it's not just a return to the past, it's a journey forward into a more fulfilling future.
Exactly. And that journey is available to each of us, no matter how far we've strayed or how many mistakes we've made.
We started this deep dive exploring how Deuteronomy 32 is a message for future generations, right? A warning against forgetting God's faithfulness and falling into that trap of idolatry. But it's also, and maybe even more importantly, a message of hope, an invitation to experience the transformative power of God's grace.
And that message is as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. I mean, we're all prone to wander, to lose our way, to chase after those strange gods that promise fulfillment but ultimately leave us empty.
But the good news is, we have a God who never gives up on us, who relentlessly pursues us with his love, and who longs to restore us to wholeness.
So if you're feeling lost, if you're struggling with those modern-day idols, remember this: there's a path back, a path to restoration, and it starts with a simple step: turning towards the one who is always waiting with open arms.
That's a powerful reminder to carry with us. Thanks for diving deep with us into Deuteronomy 32. Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep discovering the timeless truths that can transform our lives toward other lives.